Okay, so as we've been talking about understanding like moving and positioning and so on and so forth, a lot of times as we're speaking and we're going through um, the walking out of everything, it can be confusing, right? It can be confusing because it's like, okay, yeah, but rest, but what does that look like? Does that mean take a nap? Yeah, sometimes. Okay, so sometimes, right? So we talked about before, I think it was last night, we talked and we said that there's sometimes when you are going and your territory is expanding, your capacity is increasing as well. The physical capacity to be able to hold the glory that God has for your assignment. And so what ends up happening is you do have to eat differently, work out differently, rest differently, meaning sleep and restore and take your vitamins and nutrients and things like that because of the fact that there is this shift as well. Right. But something was so interesting that was spoken about earlier. One said that I had to move. I had to move. And immediately my spirit God said, no, don't move. And I'm like, wait, what are you talking about? And it was like, he was like, don't move, but you can reposition. Don't move, but you can reposition. Right. And so it was interesting. Yes, there's many that that are not where they are aligned. They're not where they're to be. And so there is a major move, understood, right? But this is what was interesting. When I looked up, you guys know how I am. I love the word. So Webster's 1828, Noah's Dictionary, you can find that in your apps and free online as well, right? And so what was interesting was we're talking about not moving, right? In the morning, there's the mountain, okay? We're talking about the mountain is to move, not us, right? And so there's like this face off. And so when you're looking at the word move, it means to cause to change place or posture in any manner, right? To excite into action, to affect, to agitate, to rouse, to move the passions. It says to persuade, to excite from a state of rest or indifference. That means that when you're in a place of rest, that when the enemy wants you to move, what essentially is saying is the enemy is here to shake, to agitate, to persuade you, to prevail on, to excite you to where you end up moving, okay, out of a state of rest or indifference. Now, indifference essentially means that while you still believe, even if it did happen, you're not emotionally attached to an outcome. Even if it didn't, you trust God. You're indifferent to the outcome, but yet you are still believing. Now, my God, that is a very hard place to be. You're believing for your marriage or your children or your business, right? Or your relationships, whatever it is that you're believing for. And you're like, God, how can I not be emotionally attached to the outcome? And I realized that whenever I realized that I was emotionally attached, I was not actually indifferent. I was not actually in a place of rest. See, the moving that's why the enemy wants you to move. So I wanted you guys to understand this because now we're understanding that the enemy is here to persuade us. Here we're talking about moving, right? To persuade, to prevail, to excite from a state of rest or indifference, to shake, to agitate. It says to change place or posture, to stir, to pass or go in any manner or direction from one place or part or space to another, to tremble, to shake. Okay? So it's imperative that it's understood that when we say that we're not moving, we are essentially saying that we are not persuaded. We will not be prevailed on, that we are to prevail, that we will not be excited from a state or a place of rest or indifference. It's not going to shake us to where we're agitated. And now all of a sudden we're stirred up and we're like, oh my gosh, is this really going to happen? Right? Like what the story was this morning, where it was that there was a believing for healing and the work was already done, right? So we could go and we could pray, we could come down on our knees and we can pray and do it again, or we can just stand from a place of victory that the battle's already won. And this is what we've been talking about, right? Because I know we spoke about in Jehoshaphat, we were talking about the battle already being fixed in our favor. And so this just brings a little bit more clarity, right? So when you're talking about being immovable, that the circumstance has to move, but you're not going to move, this is what that means. So be careful what we're speaking to say that we're moving, but we're really in a position, because what this position means. Okay, so a position essentially is a state of being, a situation, right? We are in a state of being. It's a condition. It's when we're looking at this, it's a principle laid down, a proposition advanced or affirmed, a fixed principle. So when we say that we move, when we think of moving, that means we are actually not only moving physically, we're coming out into we're coming out of a state of condition, a state of being. That is really powerful when you think about that. Because when you're in position, okay, to say that you're repositioning just means you're just going to readjust. Oh, I caught myself. Let me get back into position. I caught myself. But to say that we've moved means that we are actually out completely of that state of condition, out of that state of being. And so I loved what I heard. So when I looked at rest, because I'm like, okay, God, many are asking, what is rest? What is rest? There was so much in it. I loved it. It said, rest is a state of reconciliation to God, a place of quiet and permanent habitation. Right? And so I'm like, wow, when you are in a rested position, it's like being in a seated position, like we spoke about earlier in other lessons, which means that it is literally a permanent habitation. So you are conditioned in a state of being, you are in a state of being, in a condition within a habitation, a permanent habitation. And I love this. It says that which anything leans or lies on for support. That means when we're in a place of rest, what does that look like? It's not just sleep, guys. What that also looks like is we are in a place of not only peace and a permanent, quiet habitation. That means we're in a place of listening ear, okay? Like we're in earshot of what God is saying, okay? So we are constantly in this place of listening, but we are also in a place that we lie and support on. So that means that we are in a place that, what does that look like to rest? That means to be in a place that we are resting and relying on God, that we are literally out of a form of any kind of control in any way, shape, or form. So this place in this definition also means to be undisturbed. Remember we talked about move earlier, how the enemy wants us to move. So in this place of rest, we are undisturbed. That means our mind, our thoughts are so fixed on lying and supporting on God that we, right, that we are not shaken. Right? And so another definition, which was absolutely so cool, it says to rest on heaven's determination. My God. We don't even need our own determination, y'all. We could rest on heaven's determination. That's a whole nother level of determination that I think. We can rest. That's what exactly what the definition is. To lean, to trust, to rely, to rest on heaven's determination, to abide, to remain within, to remain within. So to rest doesn't necessarily mean that we're just sleeping, we're not doing anything, we're not in a motion, we're not in a forward motion. No, 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 no. I'm hoping that you guys are understanding this. It's to place as on a support. We rest our cause on the truth of Scripture. So imagine this, to rest means to abide in a permanent habitation. A permanent habitation. I heard this and I've been just chewing on this. So yeah, check this out. Yeah, it's our legal position to be rested and seated in the heavenlies. It is our legal position, but is it your living condition? I'm gonna say it again. So yes, it is a legal position. We all know the things of God. We all know that we are rightful heirs. We all know that it is our inheritance. We all know that Jesus Christ said that he raised us up that we may be seated in heavenly places. But is it your living condition currently? So that was my question on tonight. Is it your living condition? It is your right. You have access to it, but will you be moved? Will you be persuaded? Will you be prevailed on? Will you be excited from a state of permanent habitation, leaning and supporting on heaven's determination, and excited from a rested place or indifference? Will you be agitated? Will you be shaken? Is it truly your condition, your living condition? See, I realize that moving, it's a posture, but position is a state of being. One is a posture, but another is a state of being. So to be positioned is naturally to be in a place of rest as well. Because that is where we are in our habitation. Remember, rest means a habitation. It is a permanent habitation. So it is a place that we dwell. It is a living condition, but the position is different. It is how we operate in a place of habitation. It is how our position is how we operate in a place of rest. I think y'all got it. I think y'all got it. So let's go ahead and end this lesson. Let's go ahead and end this lesson.